This book, The Pisces, is about the very physical relationship between a woman and a merman, and the headline on my review copy goes, "Get wet." Let's take a couple of seconds to think of the marketing assistant at Hogarth who got promoted because of this. You notice that I said that it's about a very physical, very explicit physical relationship between the two, but I did not call this an erotic novel. I did that on purpose, because to me, this wasn't an erotic novel at all. It was an amazing read, and I totally think you should read this book. It's incredible, but I may be the only reader who does not think this is erotica. There's in the description box, I'll put a link to a feature on Melissa Broder, on the author, where she too describes the book in those terms. But I wouldn't call it that. I'll talk about that more later in the video. What this book definitely is filled with very graphical descriptions of intercourse and with abundant scatological moments that took me back to my reading experience of Freedom by Jonathan Franzen. There too, the narrator describes extensively characters' experiences with their own feces. Back then I was like, well, this showcases the extreme honesty of American literature and the way these writers want to detail all types of experiences in life and have no prejudice in no way. Nowadays I know myself a bit more as a reader, and I was like, nope, Melissa, some things are real fine, even if you don't talk about them in detail. That was uncalled for. No thanks. What's real good though is that same honesty and that same amount of detail used when talking about the main character and her own stool is also used when talking about emotions and about the convolutions of certain feelings and of human experience. The main character in this novel is a young woman halfway through a failing PhD. She is in an emotional state of crisis, and she may or may not have physical, emotional addiction and other problems that need to be treated with group treatment she is not that hot about. And the book is incredible in the way it details the pits of depression the main character can fall into at any moment, and the way she can actually behave quite horribly when she comes out of these pits and goes on a high of joy, and everything seems to be going all right with her life, and all of a sudden those things that helped her before, her friends, her dog, become hindrances and more commitments that she has to shed in order to be fully joyous. In the way this book is so honest, it portrays one of the most three-dimensional main characters I've encountered in recent fiction. It's truly amazing. Dealing with all of these things inevitably make this I would call this a ruvid book. I don't know why I like that adjective. It inevitably deals with unpleasant things abundantly, but it never gets disturbing. I've read some reviews and some opinions on this book saying that it was fun, it was sort of a hilarious read. I wouldn't say it's necessarily laugh out loud fun, though it has its moments by all means. And the basic concept of the whole book has of course an underlying irony that it's hard to miss, but at the same time it's in some way a light read, as light a read can be, that it deals with such hefty and such difficult topics. What I have not yet mentioned, but it's probably the greatest thing about this book, is that all of these reflections never hinder the great, amazing pace of the novel. Every chapter moves the action forward. There are a couple of great twists in here. There are those awesome moments you find in the best adventure fiction when you can sort of foresee that something terrible is going to happen, and you're on your toes because you fear that it's going, you fear that any page now this or that character may be dead, but and all of that, it's amazing. This actually does read like an adventure book. It flows so fast. Even in the second half of the book, where occasionally the reflections of the main character on the convolutions of her own depressions and fears get quite extensive, tend to get longer, tend to get more difficult to follow. Even then, you never get bored. Even then, the plot is always there, and you're always aching to know what happens next. Also, because the sort of titular merman does not appear, well, not exactly until about halfway through the book. In this sense, the Pisces reminded me a lot about We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves, another masterpiece by Karen Joy Fowler. That book too, or you know, even if you haven't read anything about the book, even if you don't know anything about it, you know that something strange is going to happen, and the author is very, very good at keeping you hooked throughout a large chunk of the book before the main event even actually happens, before the main revelation actually strikes, and when that happens you are completely lost in the world of these amazing novels. The ending of the Pisces 2 is also perfect. I couldn't have wished for a better one. It gives an amazing sense of conclusion. I feared as the ending approached that it would have had a much blurrier one. Instead, I was thoroughly satisfied. All that's left to me is to address that idea of this as a erotic novel. I did not perceive this book as such because to me this is, if anything, an anti-erotic novel. The way I can talk about this is by comparing it, paradoxically, to a fantasy novel, which is The Magicians by Leo Grossman. The Magicians deals with main characters who live in a world of magic and wonder and monsters, but who are so bored with their own power within this world that after a while they can't really appreciate it anymore, and they live through wondrous quests and magical adventures, but they are never enough and they're never happy with these. And at the end of the day, once you've read the book, you're sort of disgusted with the whole idea of going on adventures, just as the main character is throughout the course of the novel. In that sense, The Pisces is about a woman who has issues dealing with her own sexuality and with relationships, which often turn toxic for her. In that sense too, it is filled with sex. There's lots of sex in this book. Basically in every other chapter, I don't know, but lots, sure. But at the end of the day, the final effect was to convey that same sense of, if not disgust, of dissatisfaction with her own sexual life, and to realize that sex is perhaps not the solution to her problems and to her depression, the way the characters in The Magicians learn that magic and going on quests is not necessarily the solution to their problems, and it's not going to make them happy. I don't know if the relationship stands, and as mentioned, pretty much everyone else considers this to be an erotic novel, but if you ask me, that idea, the way sex is portrayed in Pisces, is one of the things that makes it strong. It's one of the things that make all of these reflections all the more relevant, the way the book conveys so well the character's attitude toward her relationships. At the end of the day, once more, The Pisces is a great novel that deals with very hefty themes without ever being morbid. Beyond that, it's a story with fish people, and I'm a sucker for fish people, that moves very fast. It's always entertaining, has a great ending and a couple of amazing plot twists, a few very interesting characters, is hilarious when it has to be, and very, very sad at other times. And I couldn't recommend it more. Please do read The Pisces and let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And thanks to the good people at Bloomsbury for the review copy of the novel. Thanks to that marketing assistant too. In a second I'm going to put links on the screen to other videos you may find interesting or entertaining, which I filmed recently. And thank you as always for watching. Bye guys.